Hello and welcome to MIP TV, and I'm with Bob Cook, who is our book reviewer. He reviews books regularly, and we're into the 51st book,
Yeah,
and it's an interesting book. You're going to do something a little bit special, aren't you, Bob, with this book?
yeah. I thought we'd go as we've gone past the 50th book, which was the Montreal Childhood of Eric Byrne. I thought we'd actually look at another really well-known book and take it from a TA, a transaction analysis standpoint. In other words, to look at how some of the TA themes could be used to analyze some of the characters in the book.
Okay.
So the book is, yeah, the book is I think, probably one of the best-known fictional books around at the moment, and it's called, A Philosopher's Stone.
And
Philosopher's Stone.
it's by J.K. Rowling, so it's basically Harry Potter, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the first book of the Harry Potter series. There's 8 of these books, and it's the first one. It's how Harry, got to Hogwarts. The beginning of the story. How he was adopted, and he lived under the stairs of his wicked stepfather, if you want to put it that way,
Right.
and who didn't want him at all, but had to because he was afraid of some of the wizardry, and also the wicked stepmother had promised that she'd do this. So they took in Harry Potter very begrudgingly early in his life, and he lived under the stairs, and he's called The Boy Under the Stairs.
Right.
And this is the Philosopher's Stone is the first book in the whole wonderful books of these series of Harry Potter.
Yeah, and it's interesting, just in that preamble. But a lot of people come to Harry Potter and they think, it is a wonderful series of books to help children read. But, that kind of story about neglect and rejection and being discounted is something that really comes up for us as therapists a lot. A lot.
A lot of those themes, they will, over the last 36 years of my work as a professional therapist, those themes occur over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You're right. From a TA perspective, the first model of diagnosis as a transaction analyst will use will be something called script analysis.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you're analyzing the life plan of the character of Harry Potter. And the things you would look for would be injunctions, that's the negative parts of the scripts, and then what we call drivers or counter script, which is the themes of how the permissions, if you like.
Yes.
And quite clearly, when we start analysing Harry Potter's, we've certainly got a don't exist injunction going on there, a don't belong injunction, certainly don't be important, don't feel, keep going, being strong, whatever. So you've got these strong themes running through of what you've just said: neglect, being strong, stiff upper lip, don't exist, don't belong, don't feel. And it's really that genesis of that script of your life is very strong in negativity. And it's interesting what decisions Harry Potter then made in terms of script decisions that would really sort of be part of his early personality. When you look at those negative injunctions that have been passed down by the wicked parents. And I think he made a very strong decision, that he was going to survive. The people around him weren't okay. And actually, certainly right at the beginning through all this, I don't think he thought he was okay either.
No.
So you have a pretty baseline negative start to his early conditioning for life.
Yes.
One thing about him was that his biological mother and father, who had died, were killed by the very evil witch-like characters in these stories. He killed the mother and father when Harry Potter was 1 year of age.
Mm-hmm.
and the early mother and father adored, loved Harry Potter so much that the biological mother put her own life at stake and eventually did get killed to save Harry Potter. So in fact, he was saved. His life was saved by the love of his mother. And I believe that early years, the 12 months, really was very big in his upbringing. And so I think deep down in the implicit memories, he knew he was loved.
Mm. Yeah, and implicit memories, the very early snapshots, aren't they, that children have before they form a working video memory.
Yeah, and he knew that, and I think that carried through. And then he was, of course, developed a strong father, idolizing father figure in this, let's say, this grandfather, all good wizard who came along and, from the beginning really, and he developed this attachment, and this wizard was the headmaster of a school, so he went to the same school. So he was really adopted also by a good parent.
Yes.
So it had these themes of good and bad running through the whole thing.
It's very Kleining, isn't it?
Yeah, with good and bad objects.
Yeah,
good and bad objects.
Yeah.
And I believe as he went along and he internalized the good objects that I think came to battle in his psychological structure of the bad objects, he started to internalize a new parent. And if you want to look at it this way, there was a reparenting program going on.
Yes, I was gonna say that, the repatriative, almost Clarkson's view of the repatriative style.
Yeah, very much. Yeah. And through the next whole book, Philosopher's Stones, which was his entry into Hogwarts, the school, the wonderful grandfather figure who showed him so much love and who he idolized, and started to internalize this wonderful new parent. He saw the beginnings of a new script, the beginnings of a new parental system emerging. And in fact, the further 7 books took all those themes up. And I would say by the time the last book came out, which is called Deathly Hallows Part 2, it was almost a reparenting or reparative process completed. And in the end, of course, the good won the day. But more for Harry Potter, he had developed and internalized many good objects and made script decisions. And his life was enhanced by a new way of being.
And it's interesting, isn't it? I have to admit something here. I've not read any of the Harry Potter books.
Oh, wow, never mind.
Well, there, I know, but I do know enough to kind of wonder. I'm curious, like a lot of people who go through the arc of therapy, they have to look at the scary stuff, don't they? They have to engage with very difficult things. Yeah. And there seems to be a very strong theme in Harry Potter that, he engages with that almost Jungian shadow side of life. Yeah.
He takes the shadow side of the darker side of life on. But one wonderful thing about this book is that the very early good objects, that's the very early biological mother and father, stays with him throughout all the dark times. He can draw on the very early internalized good objects to help him in the battle through the dark sides, the dark ages. And that's a wonderful thing to have, even through fantasy. But in these books, of course, they actually came to him in visions, came to him in many of the different stories, and throughout the whole of all these books, he really did lean on his very important 11 months of his life.
So interesting. How do you think J.K. Rowling drew on any kind of psychological theory to write this, do you think?
I have no idea, but I'm absolutely certain. The themes of all those themes of that you just talked about belonging, existential themes of loss, death, abuse. They're all there.
Yeah.
Of course, the wonderful, wonderful completion of the good, coming over and defeating the dark side is a wonderful ending for all of us, isn't it?
Yes, I guess that's why the books are so popular, Bob, because that is a metaphor that we carry in us, isn't it? As humans, the light always walking towards the light, and the light always illuminating the darkness, which is probably to do with why these books are so popular.
That's right. And you and I know, I think you're going to agree here, that at least 90% of the clients that we see, they come to therapy and they want us to have a magic wand, to be the wonderful wizard that will make things wonderfully okay for them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a truth in that, Bob. I think from my experience, there's something about a huge amount of Clarkson's repatriative ideas within therapy, and you cannot escape without. It doesn't matter what I'm a person-centered therapist, but without, it doesn't really matter. I think it's pretty modality free. This idea of the good enough other, Bowlby's, Ainsworth's good enough other. This idea of having objects within the room goes back to cohort that we discussed a couple of weeks ago. But I think these are universal things, really, aren't they, when it comes to self-repairing?
Yeah, and of course, if we talk about transference, we can see the transference and the fantasy with Harry Potter, with Dumbledore, the grandfather, the fantasy figure, and it was through empathy, through acceptance, through unconditional positive regard, all these terms that we can use here. That the transference was very much a positive one, an idealizing one, which ran through the whole of the books.
Yeah. Well, next time I see J.K. Rowling, I'll ask her. I'll say, "Excuse me, me and Bob are having a chat, and we think."
We definitely think you had a psychological Bible to draw on, whether
yes,
it's analysis or person-centered here.
Yes. Well, it's a wonderful book review. I like the notion of applying a psychological or a psychotherapeutic theory to a popular book. I'm presuming that you don't wear a wizard's hat in the therapy room, Bob.
Well, we might. No, I can't. I was going to make some sort of comment there, but you're quite right. I take it off before we go into counselling.
Well, I mean, I think we'll be glad of that, Bob. And yeah, wonderful. And maybe people have put something in the comments below, either on the Facebook feed or in the YouTube. Have you read the book? Do you think there's a connection in psychological theory? Let's hear it, because I think it's just so interesting. And as always, Bob, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.